morning, afternoon, evening, everybody. I am Gunnar Rios, and welcome to another episode of the Logical Gamers podcast. Tonight, I am joined by Mr. Blanca Kong, Mr. Esoteric, and Mr. Hado Wolf. And today's episode is going to be about the upcoming game Monster Hunter Wild. Specifically, this weird, odd, quote unquote, hashtag controversy or complaints that Wolf brought to our attention a couple days ago about the first free title update coming to the game. For those that don't know, the first monster that was revealed, title update coming out in spring of 2025, is going to be everyone's favorite bubble monster, Mizune, and how that sparked some type of maybe heated debate is the wrong word, but debate period in the Monster Hunter community. So we're gonna talk about that. We might sprinkle in our own what we would like to see in a title update. So it's gonna be a Monster Hunter Wilds kind of episode with the focal point being this Mizu thing. And do we think that that's cool for a first title update? Do we think it's a wasted slot? Do we not care? You're gonna get all of our opinions because I know you're all on pins and needles as to what we have to say. So I'll give my first. I'll start first. I'm. I don't hate the fact that Mizu's the first one. I'm kind of cool with it. Well, if I'm going to be honest, I'm kind of indifferent. It could have been worse. It could have been better, but my expectation is that this is the first Monster Hunter Wilds. This is not the G rank version or the master version for newer players out there. This is just going up to high rank. So I didn't expect anything crazy. I didn't expect Ancient Fatalis or Crimson Fatalis or Yamasukami. I wasn't expecting any of that right away. So I think Mizu is a fine enough first first monster to be added in a title update. Like I said, it could be worse. I know Esoteric made a joke, like it could be Paolumu as the first one, so it could always be worse. Um, do I think, is it fine? Do I think she kind of should have been part of the initial roster? Yeah, I can see where that argument comes from. Mizu's not, to a lot of people, not hard hitting DLC type material, but yeah, as far as me, I'm indifferent to it. It's fine. I enjoy Mizu. You know, we over here at Logical Gamers just got done completing Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, so we're very familiar with a version of Mizu. Um, I'll get into that later. Why I think they should have added instead of plain Jane Mizu, but we'll get into that later. So yeah, my initial input, my initial thoughts are I'm kind of indifferent about it. Don't hate it, don't love it, is what it is. So I'll pass it off to anybody who wants to take the baton. What do you guys think? Do you give a shit? Not give a shit? Whatever to you? What say you?
I'm in the same boat. I'm in, I have mixed feelings. Um, like I don't care for her to return. I really don't after the horror we went through with Mizu in GU. Um, but I also am I also it's a DLC that I can live with and it won't affect I don't have to go to x.com and scream about it or Reddit and complain about it. I wouldn't do that because it's like, okay, well, they've already decided it and it's not a bad fight. Mizu overall is not a bad fight. It's just I do some comments I was reading was saying that, or some concerns was the fact that there was three versions of her in the Switch version of Monster Hunter of Sunbreak. There was three versions of her.
Yes. Yeah.
And I guess people are just like burnt out if you're playing every single game like how we play every single game regardless of console. You would be burnt out after the Switch version. Um, since you had to deal with three different types of Mizus. But overall, this gives me still hope that the Fated Four will return into one game again. And one of my favorite lores of the Monster Hunter franchise, as much as I dislike fighting Glavenus, one of my favorite lores is the Fated Four. I just think it's just a really cool concept between the four of them. And maybe, this will open doors for Astalos to be in a world or Iceborne like scenario. And then even more so, open some kind of possibility for Gameth to finally make a return since she's only ever been in one Monster Hunter game. I guess
Very
it's just
true.
one, right? Yeah.
Um,
Um,
sorry, real quick. I just forgot to put it in my intro. This video Wolf brought to us, that kind of sparked this whole topic discussion, was a um, video by Nova Bushido called "The Title Update Controversy" and a Reddit thread that Wolf shared with us. So if we're talking about comments and referencing thing, that's what we're talking about. Shout out to Nova Bushido, good video. We'll have all those in the description if you guys want to check it out. So just wanted to throw that in real quick. If you hear us referencing anything, that's what we're referencing, a Reddit thread and Nova's video. Anyway,
Yeah.
continue. Sorry.
yeah.
Yep.
So I'm expect I like again whenever they introduce monsters, I always think of well, if this monster made it, possibilities of another monster making it. And two major things is the Fated Four returning into one game again, and potentially Lagiacrus's return, because it seems like this game is very focused on Leviathans, or
Mm.
there's a lot more Leviathans in the base game than what I'm normally used to. So who knows? Like maybe with the Ice Leviathan, that the new one that's coming, then this Sand one that's already been there in the demo, and then Mizu, they all move differently from what it looks like based on the trailers. So who knows, right? Like Lagiacrus isn't nearly as agile as any of them, but they all could be like test runs to see how can they eventually implement Lagiacrus into the G version or the upgraded version whenever that comes out. So I like to think of like every new monster that comes in or every monster that comes in open doors to another possibility of another monster.
Hey, fair enough. Fair enough.
All right, so you want to go or you want me to go?
I guess I'll go. Um, so with Misu being announced, I'm pretty much on the same team as Gunna and Wolf in terms of like the indifference portion of it. Um, I I don't think Mizu is a bad pick. Yes, the monster was excessively used from the time of its first appearance, but I think the monster every rendition I fought it, um, it was a formidable fight. Like it was never a bad fight. It was always fun to fight her. Although there are some no, some annoying mechanics associated with her, still overall a fun fight. Um, I'm leaning towards like it could have been worse. They could have announced Giratotus, the same way like that was the one of the urgents for Rise. Um,
Yeah.
they could have announced that monster and not trying to like really shit on the monster or whatever, but like it shouldn't.
Fine, you can. It was a bad, it was a lame ass monster. It's fine.
I mean, yeah, it was pretty much lame. But I'm basically saying that it could have been worse. Now my thing is, people are complaining about Mizu having all these different iterations within one game or whatnot. Um, you know, they pretty much, which out of the Fated Four, my favorite monster is Glavenus. And like I like Astalos in terms of aesthetic. Like they all look cool. Like Monster Hunter 4 had like some great monsters. Um, but Glavenus had that same type of love. He has a deviant, he has his original, and he had another form in World. I forgot the name. I think it was like Acid Glavenus or Acidic. Well, it was one of those things.
Acidic Lavinus, yeah.
Acidic Glavenus. So he gets a lot of love too. Um, and I believe was he in Rise? Um,
He
these
was not.
He was
He
not
was
in
not.
Rise.
Not.
Okay, so they gave him a break. Um, but he still gets that same kind of love. Like there's no doubt in my mind that he's going to make it into this game, whether uh sooner or later. I think he's definitely gonna make it. Um, and then also we have to understand that from what I've seen, Misu is like a fan favorite. Like they really love this creature. Um, and I can't really blame them. Honestly, I'm surprised that it didn't make its first appearance in Portable Third because I feel as though that monster fits right in the theme of Portable Third with all these like uh, Chinese folkloric looking type of monsters or whatnot. Um, so yeah, I really don't have an issue with Mizu being in there. Um, Wolf already touched on the point that's kind of like maybe the foreshadow to the other three making a return. You know, we've always been in constant discussion about how would they implement Gameth into the fray because you know in his bare bones he's kind of like a punching bag, unfortunately, and he's a great looking monster. But monsters of his anatomy tends to kind of fall through the cracks in terms of performance. So if they do that, that would be amazing. They're gonna have to revamp him. But I also think that maybe Misu might get a revamp as well, because when Lunistra was announced as a title update for World, she got a revamp, and it was like crazy compared to like the fight that I was accustomed to seeing her. She was pretty much what a Teostra skin with maybe some slight differences about her, but like they made her own unique monster. So I think Misu probably is gonna get more moves that will cater to her within this game, and I think she's gonna be even more formidable. Maybe they might combine her with her Soul Seal form. Who knows? Um, but I just say that to say that Misu is, although like I don't really care, but you know I'm kind of in the indifference thing. I don't think there should be an uproar about her making a reappearance. Um, but I think that her actually making an appearance is gonna set the tone for future monsters to come. Um, so yeah, I mean I'll have more to discuss like once we talk further about other components about this uproar and other avenues. But what's your take, Con? I'm kicking it to you.
All right. So first thing people need to do is calm the fuck down. It's the first title update, number one. Okay. Number two, if we're comparing it, if we're looking back in time, Monster Hunter World was at the time, and I think still is, the best-selling Capcom game in their history. It beat Street Fighter 2 and Mega Man 2, which is huge. So when Monster Hunter World was being developed and being launched, Capcom had tempered expectations for that game's performance, I'm sure, and those expectations were blown out of the water. Devil Joe was the first title update for that particular game. And I'm pretty sure Devil Joe was the first title update in order to maintain momentum for that game. Monster Hunter Wilds is a different beast because, no pun intended, but I'll take it. It's a different beast because now Capcom knows where Monster Hunter World is, or Monster Hunter, the IP, is as far as potential levels of success. So they have a very good idea as to how well this game is going to do based off of how well World, Iceborne, Rise, and Sunbreak did. So now they don't have to go as hard on the title updates as they did before because the game has a lot of momentum and it has a lot of good faith and grace around it. So some would hear me say that and go, well, it just sounds like Capcom's being lazy and they're resting on their laurels. Calm the fuck down. They don't have to do everything in one shot. They don't have to blow your load in the first minute. They're pacing themselves. And Mizu is a super popular monster. Mizu's a super popular monster. It ranked 14. It was in the top 20 when they did the monster poll
Oh, that's
last
right.
year.
Yeah.
So it's not like this is like a random Polomu or whatever. People are they're burnt out of Mizu because there was three versions of Mizu and Rise, and I get that, but it doesn't change that she's popular, and it's a unique monster. It's there is no other monster in the Monster Hunter roster that is like Mizu. Mizu is one of a kind, I would say, right? So people just need to chill, right? And also, it's a free title update. Let's not get too like
So true. So true.
ragey about it. Like there, if this was a Ubisoft game, this shit would have been attached to a season pass that we would have gotten 6 months from now. You know, if this was attached to other companies, they would have like nickel and dimed you to the ground. This is a free title update. Maybe shut the fuck up, say thank you, and
Mhm.
enjoy the content. People blow this shit out of proportion, and this is why we get shitted on all the time. When I say we, I mean gamers, is because we get a little and then we ask for way more without sitting back and realizing, well, hold on, how much worse could it be? It could be a hell of a lot worse. Number one. Number two, how great is the content that we're getting? It's pretty fucking good. So
Mhm.
this is a sign of like, those with privilege are blind to it. It's so true, and this is an example of that. And this is why I'm sure a lot of executives and even developers don't feel bad when they charge us up the wazoo for content because they get a bunch of hate and they read a bunch of bullshit on Reddit or on Twitter. What was it? Uh, this is unrelated, but this is just to like reinforce my point on like how weird gamers can be or social media people can be. Lords of the Fallen has a subreddit, and they recently did a poll
Oh,
where they asked.
Mm.
Okay, Gunn already knows where I'm going with this.
yeah.
They had a poll where they asked what they asked like what they want to see in updates or in future games or whatever,
Mhm.
and one of the topics were the type A, type B, male female conversation. And I think like 80 or 90% of the people who voted for male female or make a return and to ditch the type A, type B, which I would have voted for that too. And so the modder or the moderators of that particular Reddit thread um, eliminated and banned the developers
Yes.
and the CEO off of the Reddit thread for putting a poll up for the game that they made to the community that is playing the game. That's the kind of
Wow.
entitlement that we're talking about. And these are the same kind of people that bitch about Mizu being the first title update. Oh, why isn't it Devil Gel? Why isn't it Lagicrus? Calm the fuck down. It'll come. Relax. And if it doesn't come, guess what? Monster Hunter Wilds is going to give you way more content and way more playtime, meaningful playtime, than any other game that comes out this year. Shut up. I don't need you driving Ryozu or any other developer out of Capcom because they're dealing with your stupid ass. Shut the fuck up and play the game. And if it's not good enough, don't buy it. It's that simple.
Mhm.
That's my take.
Pop.
Yeah, I
Yes.
can't
The
disagree with that. One thing I definitely can say does point out, and I didn't even think about it, is the fact that the first time they did a title update for World being Devil Joe, it does make sense on why it was such a big hit of a monster. Like that monster was significant and needed to be Devil Joe or something of his caliber. Is because they had to test the waters. It was a game that was more experimental for them. And with Wilds being Iceborne's successor, in my personal opinion, um, they can take it slower and they can take their time and they can build a strong roster slowly. They don't need to give us all the glitters and gold in one shot. So I think Mizu is like one of those that's like can be really easy or really hard fights, or just it can go either way for her. And I think that's a great balance for players going into high rank. It's like, okay, well, this monster will test you. Because if you mess up, you will lose. You will cart. She's very capable of doing it,
yeah.
of causing a game over. And on the flip side is if you are paying attention, if you are using, your resources and everything that you built towards that, you should be able to complete the fight regardless. So I think she's a true test of skill going
Yeah,
from low rank to
I
high
agree.
rank or being a high rank monster.
I mean, I think they're gonna have to make her harder or add some new tech or new abilities to her in some capacity. Because in the Nova video, he makes a good point that this is a title update. This is after, uh, assumedly most of the community is already max high rank or close to max high rank. This is supposed to come out in spring of 2025. So this is this is why I thought Mizu was kind of a weird pick, because Mizu, if we had to kind of like rank monsters, Mizu tends to be kind of like mid to late game, just regular Mizu. I'm not talking about any of the other variants. So, but now that Mizu is a title update, she is going to be arguably one of the hardest monsters to fight in wilds, because the assumption is, well, you're max high rank, you've got your gear sets going, you got your weapon sets going, you understand the game. So I don't think we're going to be fighting a mid-tier Mizu. We're going to be fighting a high-tier Mizu. And does that mean that she's going to get new moves? She's going to get variations on existing moves. Her bubble status effect might be different than previous games. Possibly. They're going to have to up the difficulty factor because of where hunters are going to be when she drops. So I don't think it's going to be the same Mizu that we know. So I'll just make my point. I was telling these guys earlier before we started, I think they should have just added Soul Seer Mizu, because we fought Soul Seer Mizu in Generations, and she was a very fun, very difficult, but very
Mm.
fun. Like her whole
I definitely
mechanics.
agree.
Yeah, so like her mechanics with like the bubbles, she
I
was
disagree.
blind. All right, so we'll get that point later. Um, I think she was a better fight, and she would be a better fight than standard Mizu. I can see where people are coming from, because especially if you're coming from Rise, you fought standard Mizu and you fought two variants of standard Mizu. If you want to make this a title update, I'm gonna say go whole hog. If you want to add add Soul Seer, Bolt Reaver, Hellblade, and not Snow
Elder
Baron,
Frost.
Elder Frost.
Mm.
So
If they're gonna make them a title update and you want to add some oomph to them, give them that, because the people who've played Wilds, I don't know, the people who played Worlds and the people who've played Sunbreak and Rise more than likely have not played Generations. So the same people that are talking about fatigue may change their tune when they fight Faded 4 that they've never seen before, unless they've played Generations. I
well,
think
Or
they
they're
should
well,
have
well,
just
I
too,
Soul
think
Seer.
too.
I think so. Here's the thing with that. I think Mizu would set the tone now because it could be the precursor to them. Because if I'm basing it off of the pattern where, like, okay, World had an expansion, Iceborne, Rise had an expansion, Sunbreak. Maybe they're holding off on those variants potentially for whatever expansion is coming out for like Master Rank, you know. So they're probably gonna put, if they follow that same trend. I think having the original Faded 4 will set the tone, and then once they put in their expansion, because we all know an expansion is going to come out for Wilds, then they're going to put in the deviants to kind of match that master rank kind of tone. That's what I think. I think that's what it
Possibly.
is.
I
It's
mean,
kind of like a segue. Like they're kind of saying Mizu is the start, because I mean, like, honestly, they picked one of the, even though it out of the rank, it was one of the lowest popular monsters on that roster. I think you said it was 14th out of like 20. So maybe what they're doing is they're doing like
Well, 14 out of hundreds, and it was in the top 20
okay,
out
okay,
of like 400 and
oh,
whatever.
she's
yeah,
very popular.
yeah. So I'm saying, like, okay, out of the top 20 of popular monsters, she was ranked 14th, right? So maybe they're working on like an Ascension release, where what I mean is they got Misu at 14. Maybe they're gonna bring in the number 10 monster later on, and they're just working their way all the way up to the top. And that's how they're kind of like bringing them in, or they might kind of like change it up a little bit. And it's like, okay, well, we gave you 14 in this next title update. We probably gonna give you 20. Still not a bad monster, but good enough because you guys ranked it as number 20. Um, I mean, considering that they have to think about like how the monster adapts to the current engine, the playstyle, things of that. Is it a big enough monster to warrant a title update? Because I'm pretty sure some of those popular monsters could potentially be a monster that's like, well, they like the aesthetic, but fighting it was released in like a low ranked situation. Like for example, for those of you who might like Geratatos or let's just say Barith, right? Let's say if Barith is like a likable monster because it's liked aesthetically. Um, they're probably not going to have it as a title update because it doesn't meet the expectations of what a higher level monster would be if that makes any sense. You know, so they wouldn't bring
Yeah,
it in
no,
the
it would
frame.
it would
So
have to be a higher level monster because
yeah,
we have already finished the bulk of the game at that point. Title update is just it's more to do, which is great, but it wouldn't make sense to release Palumu or Pookie Pookie as title update too, because like unless this Pookie Pookie is sporting nuclear bombs, I'm gonna run through it like it's nothing. So Mizu makes sense, and this is gonna be I guess would have to be a stronger Mizu to make sense.
yeah,
But
They can
anyway, I
take
know
move sets from Soul Seer and give it to the base Mizu just
possible.
on a
Yeah,
more tone level. Just to add some flair to base Mizu. I imagine that's what they will do to an extent, or I don't know what kind of area we're gonna fight her in. I don't know what that map looks like. But if she uses her agile body and the area is designed for it, she can be more environmental type of fight where, she's bouncing off the trees or she's slithering through crevices. Like there's many things they can do with her. And I think I will back up Kong in the sense of where that we have to wait and see what that looks like because it's not something they had to do. They chose to do it. So, but let's wait and see what the fight looks like before we start screaming, it should have been Gameth. It should have been Gameth. Okay, you wanted Gameth, but maybe Mizu is the door to Gameth. Like we don't know everything they're gonna do for it, so let's wait and see first.
no, definitely, definitely. But I know Kong had disagreed with a point that I made earlier, so I want to hear that the side of the argument.
Yeah, so you had mentioned it would have been better if they had a variant like Soul Seer in the game. And I agree with you in the sense that I would like that too personally, but I disagree that that's a better option because you have to look at it from this perspective. We are legacy players. We've been playing Monster Hunter for a while, long time since Freedom 2, uh, Freedom Unite, Tried, like that era. So for us, regular Mizu's a little like disappointing and like a little underwhelming. I get that. And that's a lot of players. But it's not just for us. It's for everybody, right? And so they have to strike a balance of like, okay, let's introduce a popular monster that can provide a challenge to new players, intermediate players, and maybe a challenge to like more experienced players, or at least be a nice option for experienced players, right? Mizu strikes the balance across the board for that. Um, Devil Joe, Ludistra, Lagiacrus might be a little too much, right? And so you have to keep that in mind. You have to remember this is the start of a new Monster Hunter game. This is not the G version. This is not the Master Rank version. This is the vanilla version of Wilds. So you gotta like, if you're an experienced Monster Hunter player, you have to kind of like go in with tempered expectations. That's really important. That's why I think Mizu's perfect because it's like the game is still gonna be hot when it drops. They don't need to release like a huge update. It just has to be a meaty update with substance, and people will be happy. A great example of them dropping the ball during, I think this was Iceborne, was when they released the variant of Barrioth. It was like Frostfang Barrioth. We got it. We
That monster
updated it.
was a
We
huge disappointment.
we beat the fuck out of him night one.
Hmm.
Didn't even bother making his armor because his armor was trash, and we
Hmm.
never did the quest ever again.
Yeah, huge
Why would
disappointment.
you? Why would you? Why would you? I think they've learned from that, and so Mizu kind of occupies similar space where it's just like it's kind of like I don't want to say a throwaway update, but it's kind of a throwaway update compared to what we want, compared to what we could have. And so I think that's a perfect day one update because it's like people are still going to be playing the game by then, right? And I think Mizu's better than Frost Fang Barrioff or whatever it is. So it's like
Hmm.
it could be so much worse. So just and it's free, guys. Like, calm down. Like it'll be fine. So that's it. That was my disagreement.
So
The YouTuber, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to get this point out. The YouTuber did mention one important detail. I think he did it the way he sounded was more like a complaint, not necessary, but I think it's more of a tactic. And he mentioned that they pick monsters based on what they how they need the game to be played or what the game theme is supposed to be, but yet they include favorites. And I
Yeah, I
think that's
remember
a
that
very
part.
important, right? That's a very important detail that some of us have to remember when we want certain things, is that in the end of the day, Mizu, high chance of making it. I mean, 14 out of 400 and something on a poll is an insane slot to be in. So it's yes, they will have monsters that fits the wild theme, but at the end of the day, they're going to throw in their favorites because they still need to pull those people who have those favorites. They need to pull those people in. They need to, like, I know Zenoga's gonna make it. He don't need to be title update number one. He don't need to be title update number two or three or four. I know Zenoga's gonna be there as my as one of my favorites. I know Nagakluga is gonna be there as one of my favorites because they they're not going to ignore the popular monsters. But at the end of the day, um, it's a balance that they have to find. They have to find the balance of what's going to fit the game, but also find the balance of, well, how can we keep those who have these favorites? How can we keep them glued to invest again or to continue to play? Because really, the way I look at it is that it's new territory, in the sense of where it's like they're building the game as a successor to Iceborne, and this is a great way to introduce those monsters that couldn't make it in Iceborne because of whatever graphical or technical issues was there before. Is now here's their chance. So I think people should be a little more appreciative in that regard.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, maybe it is coming from. I just got done fighting Soul Seer, so maybe that's where my brain is. But I
Bro,
mean,
like, trust me, when I saw the title update, I was like, we just did this like 4 days ago.
yeah. But okay, here's the
But
thing, right?
but
Here's uh huh.
you separate what the actual fight in the game and where that fight happened. You separate that from the purpose of why it made it into this new game and the fact that we're not even at that fight yet to see how that fight will go. You understand? So it's like we just did it, yeah, but I think I would have been more burnt out if I was playing Sunbreak Endgame, right?
yeah,
Would have
that's the thing. I can understand if like you were playing Sunbreak and you just got done fighting three different Mizus, and then you're like, oh shit, Wilds is out. Here we go. And then it's like first title update, regular Mizu. It's like I just got done fighting Satan Omega level 3 Mizu.
and
Now
mind you,
But
all versions of Mizu in Sunbreak are endgame, all of them. So it's not like like say if you were playing Sunbreak up until like Sunbreak was the game you were gonna play to like get you into the mood of Wilds, I get it. But if you really think about it, title update is what, maybe 2 months from now, 3 months from now, there'd be no Mizu for you to fight. So by that time, your fatigue of Mizu would have already worn off anyways, because you would have been fighting other things.
Well,
True. Yeah.
here's another
Go
thing,
ahead.
right? I think well we have to remember that us playing uh, Generations Ultimate was an option because that game came out like a while ago, you know. So I guess they probably would have thought that maybe, because I mean, don't get me wrong, Generations Ultimate still has a fan base. There are still people that are in the servers, still playing, still to this day or whatnot. But I don't think it's of the magnitude of how many people are currently playing World, right? I think World has a bigger, at this moment, has a bigger fan base than Rise, and I think they probably kind of gauge that to determine like, okay, well, most of our fan base are currently playing World. There's no Mizu in World, so we're going to kind of revitalize that and bring them back for those who've played Rise or for those who've played Generations Ultimate, and we're bringing back that character. I mean that monster. Um, and then another thing that I wanted to say was, well, I know, Wolf mentioned something about it's like a new territory. So my thing is for title updates, I mean, I already know why they're probably pushing the envelope of returning monsters, but why don't we just get some newer monsters that can take advantage of like the environment? I already know why. It's because they already have the skeletal structure. They have all the props needed to make the monster. All they would have to do is just be strategic in like their adjustments and whatnot to make them fit within this within Wilds. But like I would say, to really take advantage and start fresh, for these title updates, if people want to complain so much, let's give us some like newer monsters, because I gotta say the newer monsters that they introduced so far look really sick. They look like, based on the fights, they take advantage of the environment. So at least from my perspective, not saying that I wouldn't want older monsters to make a return, I just feel as though it would be a lot more interesting to see what else they can concoct with like newer creations. Or hell, I mean, I don't know if this is going to be out of their roster, but let us get some monsters from Frontier, because a lot of people in the U.S. did not get to play, or see experience most of those monsters in Frontier. So, I mean, yeah, I
Well,
think they could
they
do
have
that.
added Frontier monsters.
Oh yeah, Espinas,
Espinas.
yes, yes,
Yeah, he's a Frontier monster. Kind of disappointing in my personal
very,
opinion,
very much
but
so.
but he's there. Like he's representing Frontier. I mean, I imagine they will add a new monster, maybe even two. Um, Kong did bring up a good point that I was following kind of like the old standard template of World,
Yeah,
where it was only 5 title updates until Iceborne came out. It is very possible that they could be like in groups of 2. So there might be 5 total big updates, but they might come with 2 monsters apiece. Or we might break from the 5 and have 10 for, I don't know.
yeah, or
Um,
new maps and stuff like that too. Because I mean,
I
like,
see maps being like in the G rank update, unless it's like an arena. They might add like bring back um the kind of like the solo arenas that we had to fight the deviants in, like the volcano one or the
yeah, like
ice one. I could
Cove
see that.
Karoff, and yeah,
Yeah, I could see that coming back. I definitely think a new monster will be added to the title update. They did it in World with
hmm,
Kulturov and Safi Jiva later on in Iceborne. There might be. I've heard rumors that, not rumors, but the Final Fantasy team has said, "Hey, it'd be really neat if we could put Bahamut in your game."
I would love that.
We know there are collaborations, Behemoth and Witcher 3, Behemoth being like the standout collaborative title. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe the last title or second to last is Behemoth. I mean, Bahamut from Final Fantasy.
I don't know
And
how the
if
hell
it's,
we would fight that, but I'm all for it.
hey, I mean, if they do it with the same level of quality that they did the Behemoth fight, it'll work. And I got faith that it will. So I definitely think we're going to see new monsters as part of title updates for sure. brand new monsters, just like they did in World, and Sunbreak. So that I don't think you have to worry too much about.
Yeah. True. 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 True.
And I think we should take some time to talk about Gameth for a second, because that's where this controversy stems from, is the lack of Gameth. Let's be real for a second. Gameth
That.
was kind of lame. All right, let's just say it out loud. Gameth was a cool design. I think most people would agree, from just a visual, design standpoint. Very cool monster, very unique.
Yeah.
But from a fight practicality standpoint, he was a pushover, right? And so, and um, where did he rank in the popularity poll? You know what I'm saying? Like people are saying, "Oh, Gameth, release Gameth." I promise you, if Gameth was title update one, it would be just a repeat of Frostfang Barrieth. You beat the fuck out of him. You wouldn't make his armor, and you'd be done with it. Like it would be so. It would be a nothing burger.
Yeah,
That's what I think, right?
I was
And so,
very okay, go
eh,
ahead.
just last point. People are only saying Gameth because it's tied to the lore of the Fated Four, and he's been the only one who hasn't returned.
Yeah.
That's the only reason. It's not.
Mhm.
It's. I don't think it's that genuine to me. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I was actually very surprised watching Bushido's video. How many people, including himself, were like, "Oh, my boy Gamif, they did my boy Gamif dirty. Where's the Gamif at?" I'm like, I did not think this guy had a fan club. Apparently, I'm incredibly wrong. Maybe it's just a meme, and it's like, "Lol, Gamith." If we say it enough, like Morbius. Oh, if we say it enough, Sony adds it back in the
Well,
theaters.
It's the same as Plesioff fans. I don't really believe these people exist.
well.
Okay,
Here's the
fair.
thing. Well, here's the thing. I personally do like Gameth, but objectively speaking, he's not. He based upon what he is or what he was in Generations, he's not a good fit for moving along. Like he's a big
Sure.
punching
I
bag.
mean, I mean, you like Gamif because you think he's cool, and that's fine. From a design standpoint, I
Hmm.
think he's pretty cool as well.
Yeah.
But these people are acting like Monster Hunter is incomplete without Gamith being in the game. Quite frankly, if they only ever add Mizu, Astalos, and Glavenus, I'm fine. We can make it the Fated 3. We can remove someone. I'm cool with that. But
Mhm.
like these people were acting like, oh, Monster Hunter is not complete without Gamif. And I get the lore. I that is cool. I do get that. I also think the monsters, the four monsters from Sunbreak, based on Hollywood monsters, I think they're cool. I'd rather see
Mhm.
them come back faster than Gamith. Any one of them,
Mhm.
even the weakest one, which was
Tetradon.
the whatever the Frankenstein one was that.
Oh, that
Whatever
Golem
was
the
Garum,
Garen
Garum
Golem.
Golem.
Garam Golem, something like that. I would like him to come back faster than Gamith because he's just from a design concept and a fight concept more interesting than Gamith. Um, even if
I,
they go ahead, Wolf.
I was saying like if they did Gamut, they can't do base Gamut, and if they do base Gamut, they have to revamp him. He
Yes,
needs
yeah.
a revamp. She needs a revamp.
If
It
if Gameth were to come back, he needs a complete overhaul, 100%.
yeah, yeah.
And,
And
and
to make it challenging, it can't be a high rank fight. It has to come with the update that will give us the master rank. That's what they call it now.
yeah,
And it would have to be there's some kind of subspecies to it or an overhaul of the base fight. I think design wise it fits Wild's theme, but it's obviously it's an untamed looking creature. So I think it fits already aesthetically, but they have to fix it to fit mechanically so
Yeah.
that it's an actual fight.
Yeah, and I think they can absolutely do that, right? Because again, they did that with Lunastra. Like Lunastra was, I mean, she had some of her move pool, but like the fight was just insane with what she was able to do with her fire and like how she functioned and whatnot. Like they made her work. Not to say that she didn't work in the previous Monster Hunters that she was in, but they just literally like really revamped her where it's like she went from 5 to 10. Because honestly speaking, she was mostly a Teostra skin. But now when you fight both of them in World, they're completely different fights. So I think they can absolutely do that with Gameth. I did before like the taping of this, I did put out some like suggestions like how Gameth can pretty much dig in the snow and create like a big like kind of like a big oasis where he's like sucking up the snow and it's causing like a fissure and you're losing your footing and whatnot. And then if you get drawn into it, it's like a potential one shot or something like that. Um, or like wherever he is, he's taking advantage of the environment where he's chucking trees at you or whatever, or he's picking it up and slamming them at you. Like I think they could do a lot because
Yeah, like Bambaro.
yeah, like Bambaro. I mean, listen, I did say this too. I did say that monsters of their anatomy just doesn't really work. Like they really have to drastically make
Large
them
monster.
super aggressive and whatnot. I mean, I'm not gonna say large monsters because Devil Joe works. Like brute wyverns who are big, like his size and his anatomy works with him like flailing around. It's just those
But
like
it's different for Joe because of, yeah, Joe is tall, not big. He's tall. So Dambaro, what's the one that spins and flies in the air?
Duramboros.
The Rambos. Oh my God, the names. Um, Gamut. Those are just like big targets.
Yeah, but
Those are just
Duramboros has like
really
a
big targets. Even
Duramboros
Garen
has
Golem.
but even with Duramboros, right? He has a similar anatomy to kind of like Devil Joe. It's just
No, he's wide. He's not tall.
he's
That's the
wide, but
problem.
he's.
But that's the
Mm,
problem right there.
I think the
Devil
That's the
problem
Joe
is how,
issue.
has toothpick legs and a football body.
Exactly. That's the
Bambaro,
issue.
Duramboros, Gameth are thick all over. They're a
Yeah.
big old fucking box of a
Yes.
target. A
Right.
gunner's dream.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the issue that Garen Golem had, was that he was big and then he was placed in a game where gunning was king. So not only is he big with slow recovery, but he's also fighting a style that he can't keep up with. So was he was a joke. He was a joke. He's probably one of the few monsters where you can go in full Curio, which was that skill that drained your HP but gave you a massive attack increase, and your HP could go all the way down to the 1%, and you were fine. Like you didn't have to worry about it because he couldn't hit you if you were gunning. He just couldn't. Devil Joe is different. He breaks the mold.
well
He's tall and fast.
with Garen
But
Gome, I was expecting more of like because based on his anatomy, I was expecting more like from I was expecting him to maneuver kind of like Rajan, kind of like Blonganga based off his anatomy. I was expecting
that's
him to
what
move a little
we
more
all was
nimble than that.
expecting.
So I think it was
That's
more
what
of
we
a
all
move
was
thing, a
expecting.
move issue with him.
We all was expecting that, but no, he moved more like Duran where he would do something and then he'll take his time and have to recover from it. And that's Duran biggest issue, was he'd do something and then it's like, okay, I'm out of breath. I need 10, 15 minutes of the fight to
Yeah.
recover. At that time, you're already pumping so much into him. But Devil Joe doesn't do that. He's different, and that's what makes him. Even though he may seem large, it's like, you know, like my younger brother, for example, is a tall. He's tall, but he's slim. So it's the difference between being tall and wide and being tall and slim. It's a significant difference. So that's the issue there that Gameth have, is that he's big. So how do you make something that big challenging, but yet also fair to where you can keep players engaged, challenging to where you can give where he's not a sitting duck, but at the same time um fun or engaging. Like he's a hard one.
Yeah. The
It's a hard
only
one to fix.
the only thing I can also suggest is that if you're gonna make a monster of that anatomy, is to take advantage of like their extremities. Like for example, Duramboros. If he had the long tail, if he was able to kind of like extend it towards him, kind of like a I can't kind of like a scorpion or something, right? Where he's able to swing his tail and use it as a mace to go over his head to hit whoever's in front of him. I think that would have kind of helped him. I don't know if it would have been a lot, but it would have potentially helped
It
him.
protects him from getting KO'd from hammers,
Yeah, and then
but it
also,
doesn't. It won't protect him from Gunner all the way in the back, pumping Pierce
well, yeah, I
and
mean,
Pierce shots in.
Mm.
there's quite a few monsters where it's like, yeah, if you're people typically go to guns because it's easier to take them out. There's, I mean, and and some of these monsters are actually super formidable. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just there's been instances where we were playing and you guys would be like, you know what, he's annoying as a blade master, so we're gonna go gunning because it's an easier time, and it's no discredit to the monster. It's just like I just want to have the easiest time dealing with him. But in these monsters cases, it's like whether you go blade master or gunner, it's still an ease. It's no there's no contention, there's no pushback. So I'm thinking if
I
you're
think
gonna
the biggest thing for Gameth is just to become an AOE queen. That's it. Just AOE attacks. Everything it does, it's AOE. It just has to be able to cover herself all around with sub range attacks like she already has with the snowballs and the vacuum pushing you in, pushing you out, stuff like that.
true.
She has to become an AOE.
Or
Well,
like we talked about earlier, where if she like bulks up on armor, like full armor Gameth, that could
Hmm.
work better. Kind of like a Zamtrios thing, but tailored to Gameth. That could increase Gameth's range, maybe add a different projectile attack, something like that, which it does traditionally, but it's very minimal. It's like its feet and the Elder Frost makes its hair white. It gets a color change. I never had any issue. It didn't make my bullets bounce or anything. So I don't know what that was about, other than aesthetics.
Or
But
if for the Teostra effect, except opposite. So standing near Teostra drains your HP. Standing near Gameth because it's so cold drains your stamina.
yeah,
So you gotta back up off of her from time to time to get your stamina back. I mean, there's things they can go about it, but again, why why put all that effort into an unpopular monster that's on, like Kong said, is on demand simply because it's not there, and it's easier to complain than to comply. Um, instead of just focusing on what is popular and what the majority of fans is going to respond well to. Because any day of the week, I'm gonna prefer to see Zenoga over Gamut. And if I have to get 3 versions of Sonoga, 4 versions, 5 versions of Sonoga, and they ask me to trade one of those versions for Gamut, I would pick Zenoga over and over and over again. I'm be honest.
well, that's
I'm
one
be
thing. That's one thing I hope they don't do. I hope they don't become excessive with the variants and whatnot. If you're gonna do Soul Seer and stuff, I know I mentioned it earlier, whatever. But I just hope that they don't go really crazy with like, okay, we have this version, let's bring in the next version. I just want to see like enough difference in the catalog of monsters. Like I just want to see enough. I don't want to see, like I mean, not saying Thunder. Like I'm not saying Zenoga is a bad monster. Like I think he's definitely unanimously a likable monster amongst all of us. But I don't want to see him. I don't want to see like Thunderlord, and then you have like what's the other one?
Fijian.
Yeah, Stingin Zenoga. Like I just want like maybe one base one, or at least be a little more decisive as to who's getting a variant, because I want to see honestly mostly newer monsters, um frontier monsters, because frontier monsters was only subjected to one region from as
But let
far
me
as
ask you
I.
a question. Is
Hmm.
Frontier Monsters owned by Capcom?
Yeah,
They are? You sure?
they were just only for a particular region. That game was only set for you know so
So from what I've read, I don't know this for sure because I don't work at Capcom and I'm not Japanese, but there was a rivalry between the Frontier team and the core Monster Hunter team back when
Mhm.
there was just one Monster Hunter game. Now there's like two types of Monster Hunter games: the arcade Monster Hunter games and then the world Monster Hunter games.
Mhm.
And from my understanding, there was like a rivalry, and they were kind of like separated. The two teams, they weren't like unified, and
Mhm.
there's like this kind of like disdain for Frontier monsters because they're a part of the team that failed. So it's like
Mm.
there's like a stigma on anything that comes from Frontier, and Espinas was a surprise to me, but I wouldn't mind seeing more Frontier. I'm not against that at all, but
Mm.
the problem with Frontier monsters, and we saw it with Espinas, is that those monsters are part of Generation 2 and Generation
Mhm.
3 Monster Hunter, and those monsters are really dated. And they a lot of them would have to get overhauled as well for them to even make sense
Mhm.
in wilds. So I hear you,
And they're
but
forgettable.
I don't know if
I'm
they're
not
a
gonna
lot of
lie.
them a lot of them are kind of forgettable compared to what we could have from the mainline series. Frontier, like, would you pick a Frontier monster over like Nargacuga? I don't think I wouldn't
Never. Not a
personally,
day.
and I
Not
think
a day
most
in a
Monster
week.
Hunter players would not. They were like, nah, give me Nargacuga. Oh, do you
Mm.
want uh fake fake Devil Joe, the Devil Joe like monster from Frontier who has like that uh spiked tail, or do you want Zenogre?
well,
People are
Mhm.
picking Zenogre.
well, of course, because of I would say,
And none of the Frontier monsters were on that poll, by the way. Just saying. They're canon because the Spinas was in the game. So
Mhm.
there's like some political shit going on there. I
but
think I don't know. I don't work there.
but here's the thing, right? I would also say in that regard, why would we pick Narga? Why would we pick Zenoga over some of the frontier monsters? And I think of familiarity. You know, a lot of people don't know the
Same
frontier
reason why
monsters.
people like Charizard and not the
Exactly.
alligator fire thing from fucking Pokemon Sword
A
or
Skeledirge.
Pokemon Skeledurge. Yeah, that guy from Scarlet and Violet.
No, no, no.
It's all familiarity, like you were about to
No,
say. Go
and
ahead.
that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that the frontier monsters, and it is plausible. It makes a lot of sense, right? I would be more inclined to sticking with the evil I know because I have familiarity with that monster. I know the monster, but it's like the frontier monsters are already at a disadvantage because there's only one place that knows those monsters. So it's like for them even to have put them on that list of monsters, a lot of people they probably would have fell through the back burner anyway because nobody knows who they are. But if they were to kind of like what they did with Espinas, I think for the most part, from what I've read, Espinas was accepted. Me personally, I think he was just a skin of Rothian, and he had some properties solely associated with him. But like
So,
uh huh.
go ahead. Finish what you're saying.
No, I'm basically just saying like I feel like if they were to yes they would need an overhaul because they are dated or whatnot, but I feel like if they were to handpick some of them and put them into wilds, I think they would be accepted. One, because they would be perceived as newer monsters because we did not get them here, and two, because again, um, they're they're potentially different from the originals that we could have handpicked from. Is I think a lot of people would have been like, oh, we're getting a new monster, and not realizing that it's from Frontier. So I don't know. That's just me.
So, Espinas coming from Frontier into Sunbreak also got a um, variant called Flaming Espinas. And to be honest, I didn't even remember them. Neither one. I don't even remember the fight, but I do know what the monster does. And it was unique in a sense of that it can burn and poison at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which is interesting because it had the multi-layer kind of status effects. And it's the first monster that really can do that. But at the end of the day, it wasn't an impactful fight. It didn't it wasn't. marketed in a sense of where it's like, okay, this is what the game is focused on. Like this is the theme of the game, like Espinas is the main monster.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like that. It was just a just a it just happened to be in the game. And same for Hypnotrice, the one that was back in two. That's also was a frontier monster. And I like, do any of you even remember what the monster looked like?
Yeah, it was kind of like a freaking it was kind of like a more terrifying looking cuckoo, I
It wasn't a
guess.
terrifying looking cuckoo. It was the most normal looking monster in the normal looking creature in the whole
It
game.
was
It
like
just looked like a
it
giant
was a
snake.
colorful bird wavering, but it reminded me of like a peacock. It had like very
Yeah,
vibrant colors. I remember it very well.
right. And it's a frontier monster actually, but it it's not memorable. It's not impactful. It was just one of the first G rank fights of the first G rank fight you did, and that was it. You moved on. Nothing noteworthy about it. And the same thing that happened with Espinas. Nothing noteworthy about it. So it's like, okay, you're putting it in there, but it's not getting any respect. So what's the sense? Just it's just like at that point, it's just a waste. Just continue developing new ones and revamping the ones from older, successful streamlined games. Um, I would never say no to a frontier monster, but I would like maybe like a frontier batch. Like instead of getting one monster, you get like, okay, for this next five DLCs, it's devoted to frontier monsters. I think that will be more impactful than just one monster that's just there. It's like, okay, well, you're gonna forget them because when I think of Sunbreak, I think of Luna Goron, I think of Garam Golem, I think of Primordial,
Malzeno.
what's that thing name? Malzeno. I think of oh yeah, he could come back too. I think of Magna Malo. You know, like these are monsters we that comes to mind, not not Espinas. If Kong didn't mention, I wouldn't remember he's in the game, to be honest.
I think it's
Yeah,
just I think it's the monsters they're choosing. Like they it look like they have like a because I'm looking at it now. They have like a fire looking Rajang. I think it's called Voljang. Um, they have this cool looking monster called Zenasarisu. Like I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how they fight. Um, Aesthetically, they look pretty cool. All I'm saying is that it would be a nice change of pace because I mean Espinas, personally, I think compared to what they have on this roster here, Espinas and the Hippocrates or whatever the hell it's called were really bad picks. Like I think that was their way of just like we'll play it safe, we'll get a gauge as to whether or not these monsters are accepted or whatnot, and then based on that we'll move forward. I I don't know, but
Well,
yeah.
everything will soon be revealed. So, does anybody have any thoughts or anything? I mean, all right, Kong got nothing. Me, as far as I, I think he said it the best. Just kind of like chill out, wait for the game, have realistic expectations. The game's gonna be great. Um, I constantly have to temper down my expectations because I've seen Monster Hunter since back when Rathalos and Rothian were literal color swaps, and just chill and take it easy. And uh, my biggest hype is gonna be looking, wow, that body piece looks really cool. I'm gonna glamour that. That's where I'm at. So just we will get better stuff. We'll get crazy shit. Don't worry. Mizu's not a bad first pick. Like we all said, it could be very worse. So that's my final thought. Anybody else? Just chime in now. Forever hold your peace.
Yeah, I'll have one last thing. We did not see the full roster of base Monster Hunter Wilds. So, with that being said, there's going to be probably monsters that you were looking forward to seeing make a return actually make a return. So, I would say let's hold off on, you know, given the scrutiny that Mizu doesn't necessarily deserve. I understand them putting them in the other Monster Hunters excessively was like you guys are annoyed by it. but I think that we should maybe come to a conclusion once the full roster drops. Let's see the ratio between new and returning monsters. Let's see the ratio between popular and not so popular monsters. Let's just play the base game and see what that delivers first before complaining about Mizu. Because chances are, and I don't mean to sound like an asshole, some of the people that are complaining probably not even going to be able to get to Mizu to begin with. So
Hey.
let's be humble. Let's just be humble.
Right.
I'm just saying, a lot of people have conversations about things that they don't even know the full scope of it. That's all I'm saying.
Careful, pal. You're sounding like a Monster Hunter elitist.
Yeah.
You don't want to be one of those.
I'm not sounding like an elitist. I'm just saying be humble. Don't complain about
Don't
things.
inspect my armor set, bro. Don't criticize. I
Yeah,
have
man.
yeah, I got like, pierce up on my hammer set for a reason, right?
For that one jab attack I do with the pommel, it does pierce damage. Huge damage.
Listen, I'm just saying. That's all I'm saying. I don't mean to like. There was no assertion of malice in what I said. I'm just saying like, listen, let's focus on the goal. Let's take things one step at a time. And that's it. That's all. That's all I have to say.
All right, Wolf, you got anything for us, or you
Nope.
said what needed to be said?
Say what I need to say.
All righty. Well, on that note, we thank you everybody for listening and watching, or doing a little bit of both for our podcast this evening. We always appreciate you for the whole trip. Glad to have you. If you like this, you want to see more of this, you like to hear us yap a little bit, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, tune in for our episodes. We drop one every Wednesday. So, you let it stack a little bit or watch it when they come out. Either way, we appreciate you. Mr. Esoteric is our resident streamer here in the group. He streams Mondays and Fridays usually. He'll sometimes pepper in a random stream here and there if he's feeling a game to beat a particularly upsetting boss. So make sure you follow him. His streams are always great. He's got a nice little community there. Everything's pretty cool. We're all friendly to each other. Great place to hang out if you want to watch something on a Monday or Friday night. Great community over there. So make sure to follow him. We've got our socials. We've got a Discord. Follow us there. Whatever social media you use. If you use any of them, we got them all. Check them out. We'd appreciate the follow on any all platforms. So on that final note, thank you, gentlemen, for this conversation. Thank you, Wolf, for bringing this up because I had no idea it was a thing. It's a thing. The internet's a vast and crazy place. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I enjoyed recording with you gentlemen tonight. And on that note, take care and have a good one. Till next time.
All right. Laters.